the thundering, rumbling sound of 1,000 horsepower.
So what do we got going on today? Well, today, is it a ghost underneath the sheets? Ooh! No, this is the old man 68 Camaro. What are we working on today? Line lock and trans brake. Let's take a look. So like I said, today is going to be line lock and trans brake. What am I doing? Well, we got some hooking up to do, and the trans brake I already have wired in, but I also made this little box that is going to go off the shifter, or off the side of the shifter, and that is going to become where the old man's going to be able to use the line lock and the trans brake. Let me show you what's going on. I ended up making this nice little box for the old man. This is going to go off the side of the shifter. And everybody has their own different way of how they mount their line locks, how they're going to mount their trans brakes, where they want to put them and all that. And that's part of the fun of doing it by yourself or doing it for yourself and all that. So we've done it for so long, we have it in certain spots that we like. So with this car, because it's a chassis car and all that, you don't have a little console or a dashboard or anything like that in there. So you have to make things for it. This, like I said, is going to be his line lock and his trans brake. I'm going to mount this just off the side of the shifter, and I'm still going through it. I'd have to look up, I'd have to find my parts for it. I'll show you guys that in a second. But I'd like to touch base on some of you guys out there already know this, and hey, if you have to, take a little bathroom break here. But for the guys who don't know this, what is the line lock? What is the trans brake? What do they do? Line lock, this is your quick explanation of it. You're going to be able to lock the front brakes in. The back brakes will not be engaged, so you're not going to screw up your brakes. And you'll be able to do a burnout. You either release a button, hit a switch, it releases the front brakes, and you go. So what does that look like? Well, I'm going to show you on the black car because the red car headers are in the way and it's kind of cluttered. So I'm going to show you here on the black car. So this here is your line lock. So that right there, that guy right there, that's my line lock. So what's going on is it comes out of your brakes, it goes into the proportioning valve. Proportioning valve is proportion towards the front and the rear. This line here that comes up and around and then inside the proportioning valve, that's only to your front brakes. And then it's just a solenoid, power in, and then you're grounding it. That's it. And then off a switch, it just sends power and locks it in. Then off the bottom of it, it comes into this T, goes to the driver's side, goes to the passenger side, and that's it. So what it does is it locks the pressure in to this area here. So it just only locks pressure into the front brakes. Now, it's a matter of, do you want a button? Do you want a switch? Well, I like switches, and let me show you why. The switch portion of it. Now, perfect example. This is what I built for the old man. This is the trans brake. This is your line lock. I'm going to use them separately. Some people like a button. Some people like a switch. This is why I like the switch. If you're doing your burnout, sometimes this happens. I'm not saying everybody, and I've never done that. I've never ever hit a button and accidentally let off. Well, I have, and that's part of the reason why I use a micro switch for nitrous and not use a button for nitrous. We're not even going to go into nitrous. I won't even go into the nitrous portion of it. We're going to stick with the line lock because I know I get long-winded. I apologize for that. What'll happen sometimes, let's say you're doing your burnout, and I always start in second into third. I never do first gear because internally you're trying to slow things down. Imagine doing a burnout on wet grass, and then all of a sudden you grab into second gear. Everything internally has to stop, change, go into the next gear. That's when you start breaking stuff. So this is mild horsepower to high horsepower stuff. If I'm like 1,000 horse, stuff like that, I'll just put it in third and do a burnout. It's got enough. When you're in the water, it'll smoke them. But for, I got 500 horse, I got 700 horse. You hit the button. So again, you pump the brakes, you push it all the way down, you lock it down, push the button. You hold this button and that keeps that solenoid activated. You let off the brakes, the back brakes are loose and ready to go. You do your burnout. When you're ready to go, you just release the button and you move forward and you go. Sometimes, and I've had people tell me this because that's why they end up going to the switch, they'll hit the button, they go for the next gear, and for whatever reason, it's like you shift and you instantly just let go of the button. I've had so many people tell me that, and it's like, man, I screwed my burnout up. I ended up pulling it and let go of the button. This is why I like these switches. Now, pump your brakes, blah, 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 blah. So you go through, you pump your brakes, push them down, flip the switch. At that point, do your burnout. Grab third gear, start in third gear, whatever. When you get ready to be done, close it. Wow, that was so complicated. Wow. See what I mean? Sorry, but it's just so much easier. If you see this thing up, it's like, hey, guess what? You're not moving anywhere till you go flip. So it's so nice having one of these to where you just, you do your burnout, flop it, slap it, and just go forward. I did that a long time ago, probably 20 years old, and I ended up doing that in one car where I was like, man, I'm sick of it, because you would have a flip switch for an arm, and then you'd have this for this, and I just finally ended up converting over to this, and it was so much easier. That's why I like these more than just a push button. Trans brake. Now, for you guys that don't know what it is, this is the easiest way to describe it. I can get technical and all that, but this is the easiest way to describe it. Imagine having an automatic that you could launch like a stick, okay? So imagine being able to stick that clutch in, rev it up to wherever you want to go, rah, 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 and just dump it and let it go. How hard does your car normally leave manual compared to an automatic? That's what's part of the fun, right? Because you can sit there and just, rah, 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 and go, but that's also what breaks stuff, drive shafts, U-joints, and things like that. That is an easy way to describe what a trans brake does. An automatic, your foot on the brake, one on the gas, and you can kind of feel it to a certain point where it's either going to blow the tires off, you're going to start doing a burnout, or you just can't stall it high enough. You can't go 4,000, 5,000 RPM, right? It just doesn't happen because that's an automatic. Well, imagine having something inside your transmission that when you hit this button, so you're in first gear, you hit this button and you hold this button down, you can all of a sudden rev it to wherever you want, release that button, and it drops the hammer just like a manual transmission. That's what a trans brake does, okay? Right about in here is where I'm going to end up mounting this setup for the old man. Because once you're locked in and you're strapped in, bolted in, you can't move. So there's only so much movement that you're going to have. So if all of a sudden I try to mount it on the dashboard or something like that, it's just not going to work. So I need it in an area that's not going to affect him getting in and out of the car, that is easy to get to, but you can release the button fast enough to be able to get onto the shifter, because we don't like buttons that are on the shifter. It's just you might accidentally hit it, whatever the case may be. We both like these big buttons. Now in my Camaro, it's a little different. I have it mounted off the side of the shifter, the same button, but we can't go to that side because with the funny car cage, he can't put his arm far enough to the right because it actually takes it and like folds his arm over. So we have to have this kind of in front of it, all right? So here, is what I did. I ended up taking a piece of 1/4-inch stainless steel wire, and I ended up bending it up and getting it pretty close to the angles that we're going to need. Now what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to get the old man in the car for the final fitment. But what you can see is I ended up bending this, got it all set up here. I ended up welding it on the back side, and what we're going to do is this. We're going to mount it pretty much right here. Now the nice thing is we can take it and tip it out, we can clock it this way, but it's pretty close to what we would want to do. Roughly have it about in park. So imagine like you have your shifter all the way into park. Well, now you got it in first. Well, you just reach back over in front of it, bop, 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 and then you're just right there. You're just right to the shifter. So if he wants to have it, out here, fine. We can take it and twist it and put it in here. That's one of the nice things about the 1/4-inch wire. Once I weld this on here, you can still move it around. You can still do a little bit of twisting and moving and get it where you want. Once I get it to where I want, then I'm going to weld in a gusset or triangulate this thing. Then she's not moving. But this will at least get us in the point to where the old man can get into the car with the seat in there do a dummy up, mock up, and go, okay, I like where it is right there. Once he likes it, I just do another chunk of, say, 1/4 inch wire, and then I brace it off, say, the nose or something like that, and I triangulate it way up here to another point down there. She ain't moving. It'll be nice and stiff, and he will have this locked in. Then we start wiring. Okay, so your guys' setup is literally inside the funny car cage, like your head is looking right there. So you can see what I mean by this is nice in the sense to where you can go right from here, boom, you're right over to the shifter. So say you're all the way down into first, there. You're all the way down into first, and all of a sudden you just got to go from here, grab. You're right there. Me personally, I'd like it back a little bit farther, but getting in and out of the car for him, and he even said that, he goes, I'd rather have it forward more because this is where he likes it. This is his car. That's what he gets. So that's where we're going to have it set up. Now, you know, it's wiggly. I can move all this around. But once I add something in from here, going to the front nose here, to where it's triangulated from there to there, this is not going to move. But I want to be able to take this if I have to take it and turn it, or if I have to bend it in or bend it out. Just little things that he might need for this to be set up perfectly for him. So we got to put the seat in it, and then after that point, hey, it's me. But after that point, once we put the seat in it, he's completely settled in where he wants to be, then we can tidy up and finish that. I'm still trying to keep things coming out of the MSD box itself to where, hey, I know where that needs to go. I know where that one needs to go. So I'm breaking it down more into sections, like the MSD box might have blue, yellow, green, and white. Well, off the let's say the relays, that might be the same thing of going to the fuel pump, going to the water pump, going to this. But I'm trying, for me, to break it down into sections, that those sections that, let's say I have to establish something that's just the MSD box, it's just ignition, well, I know I have these 5 or 6 colors. Hey, I'm doing something that's going off the relays. Hey, I know I have these, 3 or 4 colors. Even though the colors are the same when you look at it, they're still in sections. I hope that makes sense. So that's what I'm trying to do. I don't have every single design and, crayon color of wire, but that's how I try to do it with, hey, I only have maybe 6 or 7 different colors. Break it down into sections then. This is ignition, this is water pump, this is the fuel system, this is this, and use those, because whenever anything happens, it's not like you're gonna look into all these different areas, right? If all of a sudden you have an ignition problem, well, you're not gonna start looking at the fuel system or the fuel pump, right? Why would you do that? So I hope that makes sense for you guys. I just wanted to kind of touch base on that. So just wanted to touch base on that. So I'm gonna keep moving, here we go. As you can see, we got the front end on the old hot rod red ruby Camaro here, and well, this is what the old man's doing. We're doing, obviously, exhaust or headers poking out the sides, so he's cutting his holes. And especially after doing a paint job on a car, you just love doing this stuff. This is one of those measure 4 or 5 times cut once, but what he's got going on with the fiberglass portions, the nice thing is you can make the holes fairly big, and then the piece that you put on the side that'll be made out of like carbon fiber, stainless steel, whatever, it's gonna cover the hole up. So if the hole is, we have 4-inch collectors on this, if you built them for 5-inch collectors, you're going to cover it up. You're going to be all right. But you still have to be careful, of what's going on. Plus, you don't want to crack the paint, anything like that. So that's the slow grinding process of all the fiberglass and everything. And he's covered. I'm still working on getting the wiring and line lock, and I'm going to do some wiring. Let me come around the other side of the car here. Hey. I'm going to do some wiring underneath the car. I thought about doing the wiring and having it go through it, but I'm not going to do that. So the frame rails by the transmission, I've been running my wiring up, going up the transmission tunnel right out the back of the shifter, and then right to that little box. So I will show you guys that, and then I just have to wire in, this little light here. So when the old man actually clicks the line lock on, that'll just tell him that it's on, and just a nice reminder to, hey, flip that switch. All the wiring that I ended up doing, I ended up throwing it underneath the car. That way we wouldn't have any wires and stuff just kind of lying on the floor. And, if you have carpet and stuff, you can obviously throw it underneath the carpet or underneath, your still plate. Well, I wanted to set it up to where everything was basically coming out of that box. And you can see the hole that I put back here in the tranny tunnel. Everything runs right by the frame rail here, and then follows up, comes up and around, and it's just zip tied in. So this is my main power coming in from the distribution block. This is my trans brake. This is going to be coming off the 2-step, and then off the 2-step, I'm going to run a little wire from the leash controller to the 2-step, because that's got to be part of that activation. And then the green wire over here, then this is my line lock. So then I know what each individual thing is. So then all that's going to do is just basically run straight up through here, come around, and then make its way into the box up here. So that's what I'm going to work on. And then at that point, the majority of this stuff will be about ready to go to where I think we could maybe fill the transmission up and, I don't know, maybe see if it moves forward and backwards. Hopefully better than what the black car did. Haha.
So we already, since we went to Wisconsin,
Yeah.
second time around, she doesn't have to go. We're already good for the year, so we already hit our allotted.
All right. I am, yeah. So we got the little box hooked up. You can see how everything is wired up. And then even have the shifter wired up, but we're not going to be able to check that out until we get an RPM activation modular for that thing. And that portion's hooked up, so we are going to do a little testing here. So we're going to throw the power on. We're going to see if the line lock works. Listen for the solenoid. Make sure the light turns on so the old man's got something to look at. He was just asking again for that. So let's give it a little test. And obviously before you tidy up your wiring. And then that's the extra wire that I put in there just to kind of make this thing a little more sturdy. So line lock. Yeah, she clicks. And we got our light on. And you can hear the solenoid click. Yep. So that's good. And then trans brake. Let me see, trans brake. Yeah, that's pretty obvious, so that's working. So all of that works. Now I already checked positive, negative on the shifter, and I don't think whoever had the car before him, I don't think they used the shifter, because the plunger that was in there, it didn't move real good. So I had to disassemble it, clean everything up, put it back together, and man, that thing shoots out like a freaking bullet now. So I got that hooked up, but again, we're gonna have to check it with maybe like a, I don't know, whatever we got, maybe like a 3,000 RPM pill. And then we'll just maybe jack the back end of the car up, put it in first and see if it pops and engages. If it does, then we know we're good. And then we'll put a, 72, 74, whatever we're going to let him shift with. And then we'll do that. So that stuff's in, that stuff's done. And now I'm going to tidy up the wiring to this section here and just make it look a little better. And then obviously the wiring down, I had to add in a couple of wires down there. That's going to go along the frame here all the way up and through. And then you can see the little hole that I got in there with a grommet, and we'll come up, tidy it all up in there. So I am going to go get me some lunch. I'm going to get me a triple burger. I think we're going to Culver's. So see you guys in a second. Man's in there tightening down the driver's seat. Well, the only seat. So I got some of that tidied up. Still got to go through and finish up tidying up the wiring in here, but we are going to fill the transmission up, get this thing on the ground, and I'm thinking we are going to try to take it outside. So I know he's excited about it. Yay! And we got Mr. Schuler out there grinding, making some noise.
Making a mess.
Making a mess? How's it coming?
Batteries.
Oh. Well, what we got going on here is his car's finally on the ground. Still got to finish up doing some front brakes on it, but she's looking a lot better. And yeah, you can see where his calipers are, way in there. So he wants to buy some nice newer calipers, stuff like that for it. So that stuff he's still got to order up. What he's doing right now is got a Glass Tech Sunoco 6.5-inch hood. I bought it for my black car, and I was going to have to cut a big old hole in it to be able to run all my nitrous stuff. So he ended up buying the hood from me. So now what he's doing is trimming the hood down here, because these things are so freaking long that they give you tons and tons of room to trim through this thing. So he is cutting up the Sunoco hood right now.
And it's not crazy loud.
Oh, no, not at all.
I have sensitive ears. That's why I'm here with this,
But just trying to blow through that. You got the one side done? Oh, yeah. So doing it on the back of the dually. Hopefully it doesn't grind through and hit the tailgate. I'm getting out of that fiberglass crap. So let's walk back inside. Of course, I got to stop and take a little shot of the Nova. I mean, who does not like a 69 Nova? This old girl, still love this car. Such a honey, honey, honey of a car. Oh yeah, looks good, sounds good, runs good. Got to get a set of slicks on this thing and actually see what it'll do down the track, but that's trying to talk the old man into getting that thing down the track. It's just too slow to drag race. It wouldn't even be fun. Give me a break. Who wouldn't want to drive a 69 Nova down the track? But he always plays it off that way. So he is doing some vacuuming. Like I said, getting everything ready. So we are going to get this thing ready to fire off and hopefully see it out in the sun. Ah, isn't that color just freaking gorgeous? So we're getting everything out here. Tranny fluid, all that stuff. Motor looks good. Bunch of fiberglass all over it. He was, cutting the holes and everything. But at that point, it was like, let's get this thing down the driveway and see if we can get it moving here under its own power. Because this thing hasn't moved under its own power in how long?
2 years.
Yeah, about 2-3 years. So he's going to do a little airing up on the tires. And then we're going to fire this bad boy off. We already got 5 quarts in it. And we'll go forward and backwards. Make sure everything's doing its job. Check it again, check it again, check it again, check it again. And if everything works good and the brakes work good, well then at that point, we are going to take it out and maybe hit the cul-de-sac, drive down, make sure the transmission shifts and does everything that it needs to do. And yeah, so fingers crossed everything goes good. So here we go. Going farther down. There we go. trans brake works. We never really tested the line lock though. No, we never tested the line lock. The trans brake works. We ended up finding out it looks like that it's not stalling as high as what I thought it would, but is what it is. It's low fours, but we'll have to check it again. Yeah, we'll have to check it over again. But nothing crazy, no bad leaks. Brakes are what you'd expect for a race car in that sense. They're a little mushy. You got to kind of, pump them or bring them up. But again, we got to take it back and forth. That's all good in that sense. Still got to finish up on the wiring for all the nitrous stuff like that. But as the car is, if we want to take it down to the track and try to run it, it's wired up enough to be able to do that. I still got to tidy up all the wiring and make it look pretty and all that stuff. But we wanted to just get it out, back, forth, and do all that stuff. So there'll be more on the car. Fingers crossed we can make it down the track, but we still have to get the car scaled in. There's still other things that we have to do, but the fact of getting it to move underneath its own power and go back and forth, and we got the tranny filled and everything's working right in that sense, that is always, an A++. So we're happy there.
We drove it down the street.
We will.
No, well, we did drive it down the street.
Like I say, it drove it down the street, but the volts were dying in the car, and it was a cluster in that sense, a cluster cuss in that sense. So at that point, I didn't film that, but we'll get it filmed to where, maybe we'll do some trans brake launches or something like that on the next one here. So, till we meet again, my friends, don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and we will see you again on another episode of Muscle Car Garage.